So, during Black Weekend, you can get this for free if you spend over a certain amount of money. To find out more, check out the video description down below.
Wow! Don't get me wrong, I like myself a good old Spitfire library. I think some of their libraries are excellent. But to spend 349 quid in order to get it for free, or to buy it for 199 after December the 1st, is it a fair price? I mean, of course you're buying the experience, you're buying the reverb of the Air Studios. But today let's run an experiment. Would it be possible within a reasonable amount of time, like of a day, to create a kind of Aperture library, a bespoke Kontakt library based on the Aperture concept? For that we'll need a recorded dry sound, passing it through a wall of amplifiers and reverbs to get a wet sound. And the magic of Aperture will happen when we crossfade between the closed dry sound and the open wet sound. And if the experiment is successful, then I will make this library available for free. But first we need to create our wall of amplifiers. Let's see what we can do about that. So our wall of amplifiers, it's composed of several instances of GTR amplifiers from Waves Audio, all the amplifiers from Guitar Rig 5 and some of Guitar Rig 4, plus impulse response for different cabinets, plus several instances of R-Bass and Max-Bass from Waves Audio, plus a convolution reverb of Air Studios loaded into the Convolugy XT free plugin, and all these are duplicated and triplicated across many audio channels. So now let's record some simple sounds from different instruments. For recording, we're going to use this lapel mic. It just costs 11 euros. And now let's bring some instruments. Let's also create a synthesizer sound. For this I'm going to use the free amazing software Vital. This is my kind of modular, not Dave, but Vital. Increase the unison voices, decrease the detune, decrease the detuning. That's it. We have a synthesizer sound that we can use now to pass through our wall of amplifiers, impulse responses, and the special reverb. Here we are in Cubase 4. As you can see, I like to keep myself up to date. And this is our example of dry, original recorded sound. This is the guitar. And now let's see what happens when we apply our customized wall of 58 amps. Ooh, okay, that's tasty. So let's take this concept, apply the wall to the dry recorded sounds, and then let's create an instrument in Kontakt. So here we are back in Cubase. We have Kontakt up and running. Let's double click to create a new instrument. Let's go to the mapping editor and the group editor. Let's create two groups. We name the one group closed for our closed sound and the other group open for our open sound. Let's drag and drop this to C3 and extend the key range. So when I play, you can hear the close sound. Now let's select the open sound and drag and drop. So now we have two sounds, the close and the open. So what you need to do is to crossfade between the two. And this is the magic of the aperture. How do we achieve that? We go to the closed group and we assign a MIDI CC number 1, which happens to be the modulation wheel, to the volume in such a way that as we modulate up, the volume decreases, and therefore we need to invert this line. So now, as we modulate up, we lose the close sound, and we want to do exactly the opposite for the wet sound. As we increase the modulation wheel, we want the sound to come. Great. So, in summary, we have two groups, the close sound and the open sound. The close sound moves down as you modulate up. The open sound moves up as you modulate up. The result will be a crossfade between the two. Let's try it. Alright, I think we have something there. Psychologically though, it would be better to see visually the aperture opening and closing. So let's try and find animation that we can incorporate in our instrument. Here on YouTube, let's search for aperture blades opening free. Let's go with the first hit. Hopefully it's for free. Feel free to remove the audio and use this video in your own work if it's useful. Sounds good to me. I hope it's useful.
F2.8 F4.
Oh yeah, this will work. Okay, so thumbs up to Jonathan Lang for providing this excellent video. Let's see what I can make out of it. Back in Kontakt, after half an hour, I managed to connect the video from YouTube, or at least part of the video from YouTube, to the modulation wheel in a way that when I modulate up, the aperture opens, and when I modulate down, the aperture closes. And it appears to work pretty smoothly. So now it would be nice to find a brand name so that we can create a skin. So let's use Spitfire as a starting point and do some research and perhaps come up with an interesting name. It turns out that Spitfire was also, at least the Supermarine Spitfire, was a British Second World War era fighter aircraft and a contemporary of the German Junkers Ju-87.
You speak German?
Oh, German! I'm sorry, I thought there was something wrong with you.
The Spitfire sounded like this. And the Junkers, obviously the Spitfire was much better than the Ju-87 in many aspects. But just to take the piss, how about if we brand our newly created Kontakt instrument as Stuka, or maybe add an S at the end, so Stukas.
Don't mention the war.
It would be hard not to mention the war, but just as a joke, let's brand our instrument as not Spitfire but Stukas. Here in the wonderful world of Photoshop, I came up with not this, with this. So finally we have this branding, Stukas Audio. I decided to name it a bespoke Aperture, and I created several patches, the guitar, the vital, a basic, a cello texture. And if we play now, and we open the Aperture, right. So I also included a velocity calibration slider where you can adjust the sensitivity of your of the velocity depending on your keyboard, because some keyboards are more or less sensitive to velocity. So this is a handy little slider to regulate that. And in order to showcase what these 6 patches can do, I think I'm going to just create a fast trailer just to showcase the ability of this simple bespoke Aperture library. As you saw, it was relatively straightforward building a simplified version of the Aperture library. If you want to get it for free, I'm going to put a link in the description where you can download and play with it. Now, if you are interested in building your own Kontakt instruments and getting your own sound and saving hundreds of euros, dollars and pounds on virtual instruments, then I suggest you subscribe to this channel, because I'll be making tutorials on how to build expressive instruments. Now, don't get me wrong, samples are important, and a lot of these companies like Spitfire Audio are producing high quality samples. But I think in recent years, a lot of these companies are overselling their samples because they're selling the story behind the sample rather than the sample itself. You as a consumer are buying the experience behind the sample. But the sound is frequency, and frequency can be recreated. You can sculpt your own frequency, and whether it's associated with the sound of a Steinway piano or with the sound of a Stradivarius violin, that gives it value. But at the end of the day, sound is frequency, and you are able to build your own frequency or pay a fair price. So I hope you enjoyed this kind of tutorial, and I hope you enjoy the free library, and I'll be interested to know what you think about it.